Hi everybody, thanks for joining us for Northern Ag TV. Well, there's a lot to talk about when it comes to these markets right now. We've seen a lot of volatility in cattle futures. We're going to try to dig through what's going on here. Of course, it started back when President Trump talked about importing more beef to lower domestic prices for consumers. And he talked about importing beef directly from Argentina to help them, largely a geopolitical move, but cattle producers, as you can imagine, not fans of that idea. The president actually proposed to quadruple the tariff rate quota for Argentine beef imports. Now, that's not a huge amount of beef, actually. As we think of the general scope of beef imports, that would be just a 6% increase in beef imports year to date. And Argentina still wouldn't be a top 5 exporter of beef to the U.S., but it was enough to cause plenty of uncertainty and, like we said, a lot of volatility in the cattle futures. In just the last week, we've seen feeder cattle down $30, which is a big drop lower. However, if you pull back, remember the first 2 weeks of October, we saw a $30 gain in the feeder futures. So really, we've kind of just held pat on this. But what really caused a lot of volatility in the market was President Trump firing back at cattle producers that were not pleased with the plan to import beef, and he posted on social media about how much he's done for the ranching industry, taking credit for this record high market that we've been seeing, which we know is really more about the cattle herd liquidating over the last 6 years to the smallest size we've seen in more than 6 decades, coupled with the strong demand that we're seeing for beef. So the president taking a lot of credit there, and his comments on social media definitely aided in that downturn in the market. Now, as you look at some of the cash trade, fed cattle actually did better than expected this week, still a little bit lower, but down just 1 to 2 on live sales, dress sales 2 to 3 weaker. In our local auction markets, the downward movement of the feeder board did put pressure on our cash prices, but still these calves are selling as high as we've ever seen them in late October. We were down $10 to $30 a hundredweight, but if you compare back to where we were last year, these calves still selling $1.50 a pound more than they did a year ago. We're talking $800 a head more that these calves are bringing. At Billings Live last week, we saw the 5 to 5.5 weight steers average $467, top of $499, upper 5 weights $429 to $451. In Dickinson, heifers sold lower, upper 4 weights averaged $460 to $482, 5 to 5.5 weight heifers averaging $437. Did see over 5,000 head of lambs sell at the Newell sheep yards. Prices there steady to 2 lower. The 80-pound lambs from $227 to $246, 90-pounders $212 to $223. Obviously, the cattle market grabbed all the headlines here over the last week, but the grain market did manage to eke out some small gains. Now, early last week, we did see wheat trading at contract lows, but thanks to some short covering on Thursday that added a dime back into the wheat futures, they did make a little bit of money this week. There's plenty of headwinds weighing on wheat right now. Reports of, continually increasing world wheat production, adding to our large stocks, are weighing on prices, and those supplies are a heavy burden to the market. But at least we closed the week with winter wheat on the right side of $5, so gives us a little glimmer of hope for the future of grain prices. Well, thanks so much for joining us for today's report. I'm Coulter Brown, Northern Ag Network.